Welcome. I'm Lynn Aquafondata. I'm a licensed mental health counselor with Crossbridge Counseling and the owner of Crossbridge Wellness Affiliates. I wish that I could join you in person, but in this age of the coronavirus, I'm learning to do a lot of things online, including things like this mindfulness workshop. So I'm glad that you've joined me today, and I hope that you can learn about mindfulness or learn some more about mindfulness if you already know something about it. I'm going to start by talking about exactly what mindfulness is and how it works and what some of the benefits are or can be. And then I'm going to lead you through some specific mindfulness practices so that you can experience what it's like or expand your tools if you already do some mindfulness and some meditation. So, mindfulness is simply being fully present in this moment, no matter what is going on, without any kind of judgment, just being present here, not worrying about the past, not anticipating the future in any kind of way, just being here right now. On one level, it sounds simple. But on another level, it can be pretty challenging, especially under certain circumstances and in certain situations. It can be especially challenging in uncomfortable situations or when you're feeling distracted or feeling reactive or having kind of intense emotions. Then mindfulness can be much more challenging. The benefits and the impact of mindfulness can be quite profound. And yet, the way that these benefits come about in our lives sometimes comes so slowly and subtly and gradually over time that it can be hard to recognize, yes, I'm feeling more relaxed because I've been doing some mindfulness exercises. Or, yes, I am feeling more centered and more effective in my life and in my relationships because I've been taking the time to do some meditation and mindfulness practices. Mindfulness is a skill that improves with practice. As human beings, our minds tend to jump from one thing to another. Buddhists call it the monkey mind. If you've seen monkeys leaping from branch to branch in a zoo, you can get the metaphor. My mind does that a lot of times, where I have one thought and it reminds me of something else from the past, and then I jump to another emotion that stirs up or another thought that comes to mind, and I'm going from thing to thing in my mind. Sometimes people compare the way that our minds function sometimes to a new puppy. Innocent and adorable some of the time, but running around and peeing all over the place and chewing things that it shouldn't. That is until the puppy gets trained. And we can train our mind too. Dan Siegel, a clinical professor of psychology at UCLA School of Medicine and the founding co-director of the Mindfulness Awareness Center at UCLA, teaches that the mind is a process, not a place or an object, but an embodied and relational process that regulates the flow of energy and information. Through mindfulness meditation, he says, we can teach our minds, train our minds how to monitor and modify the flow of energy and information into and out of the mind. Through mindfulness and meditation, we can learn to integrate the nervous system in healthy ways. Why does this matter? How can it help us? So Dan Siegel teaches that through mindfulness, we can learn the ability to regulate our bodies, to communicate with awareness, to balance our emotions, to become more flexible in our approach to life, to regulate our fear responses, to become more empathetic, to increase our insight, to even advance our morality, and to increase our intuition. A variety of research studies show that mindfulness practices increase that state of relaxed awareness. They show that mindfulness can produce tested physical signs of reduction of anxiety using EEGs and alpha and theta brain waves, that we can increase our ability to forward and enhance our emotional regulation. Especially this can be done when we're facing self-criticism and self-praise. Mindfulness practices have been shown to help manage depression and anxiety and other mood disorders as well as PTSD. Mindfulness has been shown to increase attention to and awareness in the moment and to improve outcomes for people who are facing a whole bunch of issues, such as chronic pain, such as depression, such as addiction and relapse. And so there can be many, many benefits to mindfulness and meditation. The science and the research behind mindfulness show quite a few things. But what about the practical side? So I'm here not just to talk about mindfulness, but to show you how to engage in mindfulness and how to practice it and how to improve it in your own life, how to notice the benefits in your own life. So I want you to start by just thinking about your day and thinking about the past week in your life and thinking about the week to come. There is a whole lot going in the world right now, a whole lot of things. So think about yourself. Are you feeling stressed in this moment? And I want you to start by rating on a scale of 0 to 10 how stressed you feel. 0 would be absolutely no stress, and 10 would be really out of control stress. We call this the subjective units of distress, or SUDs. So just notice, that's it. Give yourself a number, 0 to 10, how stressed you are right now. And then at the end of this session, we'll check back with that and maybe chat a little bit about, what's happened for you, or where you might go, where you might like to go with mindfulness practices. Okay, so the first mindfulness practice that I want to lead you for is related to stress and noticing how you carry that in your body. And so what I'm going to do is kind of have you focus on different areas of your body and just notice what's going on in that area of your body for you. And so I'd like you to just start with your head, just this whole sort of top area of your head, and bring your attention to your head. You can do this either with your eyes closed or your eyes open, whatever feels most comfortable to you. And just notice what you feel there in your head. Do you feel any kind of pressure or tension? Is there any kind of pain, or is it just kind of neutral? What do you feel in your head? Just take note of that. Don't judge it. Don't try to change it. Just kind of notice. Are you carrying any of your stress in your head in any way, or not? Maybe not. And now move to your eyes. Bring attention to your eyes and notice what you feel in your eyes, if you feel anything at all. Are you feeling any kind of tightness or pain in your eyes? Are you seeing clearly or a little bit blurry? Are your eyes moving, blinking a lot, or are they kind of steady? Just notice what you feel in your eyes. Again, don't change it. Don't worry about it. Just notice it. Bring attention. And then I invite you to notice kind of your sinus area and this kind of mid part of your face. Same thing. Just notice if you feel any tension or pain. Maybe you feel some congestion there. Maybe you feel nothing at all. Maybe it just feels neutral and relaxed, and that's just fine. Just pay attention, bringing your focus to that part of your body. Even maybe imagining breathing in to that part of your body. And letting it go. And now bring your attention to your mouth and your jaw. Sometimes people hold tension there, but just notice what's going on for you. If there's any tightness, if there's any pain, if it feels loose and comfortable, or if you just have no feeling there, just kind of neutral, but just focusing your attention on your jaw. And then you can just sort of focusing your breath towards your jaw for just a moment. And then letting it go. Next, I invite you to bring your attention to your neck, just sort of this part of your neck here. You can even touch it if you want to sort of help you focus on that area. Notice what you feel there. If you're relaxed, if you're tight, if it feels stiff or loose, or nothing at all, maybe nothing at all. But just pay attention to your neck. Don't judge it. Just notice it. And then move your attention to your shoulders and your upper back, another area where people commonly hold a lot of stress and tension. But just bring your attention to your shoulders, to your upper back, and notice what you feel there. Notice if there's any tightness, if there's any pain, if it feels loose and flexible, or if you feel nothing at all. Just pay attention to whatever you notice in your shoulders and your upper back. Just send your attention and imagine sending your breath to your shoulders and your upper back. And then move to your lower back. Notice how you're holding your lower back. Notice what you feel there. Any kind of sensations, tight or loose, pain or no pain, whatever you might feel in your lower back. Just pay attention, just check in with your lower back and imagine sending your breath there. Now I invite you to move back up to your chest area, your lungs, and your heart, just that whole chest area. Just pay attention to what's going on for you in the chest area of your body. Notice your breathing going in and out. Notice how that feels. Tight or loose or neutral. The rate of your breathing. Whether you have any sensations in your heart. Or emotions, maybe. Don't judge it. Just notice it. And breathe in and out. Now bring your attention to your stomach and your abdomen area. Again, another common area where people often hold stress. But all you're going to do is just notice. Pay attention to what's going on in your stomach, in your abdomen area. Any sensations there, any tightness, any gurgling. Just pay attention. Bring your attention to your stomach, to your abdomen area. Imagine breathing into your abdomen and notice whatever you feel there. Let it be what it is, but just pay attention to what you notice. And then finally, I invite you to pay attention. Notice your feet, whether they're on the floor or stretched out or however your feet are. Notice if there's any pressure against your feet. Notice if there's any tightness there or looseness, any pain or just a neutral feeling. Just notice your feet and whatever sensations there are or are not in your feet. And then breathe in and breathe out with your attention focused on your feet. And now I invite you to open your eyes if they were closed, or just bring your attention back to your whole body. This mindful awareness of the body exercise can be done with all the parts of the body. I just did a few select areas of the body. It's a good way to kind of check in with yourself. It's a great mindfulness tool because you're bringing attention to each part for what's going on here and now. It's a good way to check in with how you're feeling in what parts of your body, how stressed or relaxed you are, and kind of where you're holding the tension, if you're holding any tension. It sounds very simple, and yet that is mindfulness. The next exercise I'd like to do with you is a little bit different. This is focused on an object, something outside of you and your body. And I'm going to invite you to just pick up something that's in the room where you are. I'm going to just use this ball of yarn, but you can use anything. It could be your glasses, for example. It could be a pen on the counter. It could be a piece of paper. It could be a book. It could be a trinket that's nearby. It could be a piece of clothing. If you have nothing else, maybe just, stretch out the sleeve on your sweatshirt and pay attention to that. So what we're going to do is take this object, and I'm going to lead you through a mindfulness practice with this object. The idea is to be fully present with this object, whatever it might be, focusing each one of your senses one at a time on this particular object. And so I'll kind of talk you through it and give you a chance also to kind of pause and check in with yourself and with this object. And so first, take your object, whatever it might be, and spend some time just looking at it, using that sense of sight to look at that object. And if you have limitations with sight, then you can move on to the next one, which would be feeling. So if you have any limitations with any of these senses, then choose another one while we're talking about it. But first, I invite you to, if you can, to focus on what you see. And so I'll give some silence while you take some time to observe all the details you possibly can about your object and what you see. With my ball of yarn, I noticed that it has many different colors, a light pink, a light yellow, a light blue, a light green, and they kind of go one into another. I noticed the strands of the yarn very thin and not folded at a very regular pattern, kind of at different angles. I noticed that when I hold it up to the light, certain areas on the ball of yarn are highlighted more than others. And I can notice this little piece of string hanging down. So things like that you can name about your object. And next, I invite you to use your sense of feeling. With this one, you might even try closing your eyes so that you're just completely feeling it. Feeling it as though you've never felt something like this before and noticing the things that you can. So I invite you now to take a couple of minutes to feel and notice all you can about your sense of touch with this object. With my ball of yarn, I notice that it squishes when I move it between my hands. But if I take a single strand, it's soft, but there's also kind of a stringy feeling to it, which is different than when I hold the entire ball. I notice that it's very light when I toss it. So just name some of the things about your object, whatever they may be, whatever you could feel about your object. And then I invite you to move to your next sense, which is hearing. And depending what object you chose, there may be a sound if you hold it up to your ear and shake it, or if you, for example, touch it against something, or maybe not. But if there's any particular sound, pay attention as you rub your hand against the object or against something else. With my ball of yarn, I was kind of surprised that there actually is a sound to this ball of yarn. When I put it up next to my ear and I rub it, I can hear. I don't know quite how to describe that sound. It's a soft sound, but there actually is. It's almost like hearing a texture in a way. See what you discovered about your own object. And next, I invite you to use your sense of smell. Again, there may or may not be a smell, but just put it up to your nose and notice whatever you notice. There's not much of a smell to my object. I just sort of a faint sort of cloth kind of smell to mine. Let's see what you can describe about your own object. We won't use the sense of taste. obviously don't want to taste a ball of yarn, and I don't know what objects you have. Um, if it's a piece of food, go ahead and use your sense of taste for this as well. This is a mindfulness exercise, very simple mindfulness exercise, but what it does is it brings you completely into this moment, because as you're holding whatever your object is and using each of your senses to observe it, you need to focus yourself completely on that object. Sometimes it can be easier to let go of distracting thoughts when you're focused on something outside of yourself, like an object. So this is a good way to kind of bring yourself into the moment when you're feeling stressed out, or if your mind seems really distracted. Just pick an object around you and do this little exercise. It can be very beneficial. I'm going to give you some time to choose another object and just walk through the exercise again with another object. Again, what you will be doing is spending some time looking, spending some time feeling, spending some time listening to the sound of rubbing the object, or the sound of the object moving against something, and then smelling. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to find another object and just spend some time with that. When you're doing this on your own at home, you can spend as much or as little time as you want observing the object. But the idea is to just pay attention, noticing, and then describing out loud or in your head what you notice about that object. Mindfulness can also be used in conversation and in relationships with other people. And I have some skills that I teach, some mindfulness that I teach, to help people become more present in their conversations with other people. So I offer a mindfulness class in my own practice, which I had been doing in person. People would come over to my office from 5 to 6 on Mondays, and we would practice a whole bunch of these mindfulness practices, including some of the interpersonal skills. Now I'm doing it online. We'll experiment with doing things differently. So this is one of the exercises that I use in that class. You have to do it a little bit differently because I'm the only one here. You're there, but you can't like say out loud the things that you're noticing. So what we're going to do, just between you and I'm going to tell a story about something from my life, and then I'm going to encourage you to pay attention as I'm telling the story to the things that you notice about me and how I tell the story. So some of the things that you're going to notice are what I look like as I'm telling the story, like really paying attention to the things you notice about me, maybe just sort of some of the physical features or the clothes I'm wearing. But you'll also notice my body movements. And I happen to often do a lot of body movements when I talk. Other people sit more still. But notice what kind of body movements I have when I tell you this story. And notice my facial expressions. What's happening in my face as I'm telling the story. And notice my tone of voice. Does it change throughout the story? How might you describe that tone of voice? And then the speed of the story. Does it get faster or slower in different points? What were the points that you noticed that it got faster or slower? One of the things that I encourage people to do is if you notice that I'm expressing a particular emotion, you can name that, but try to be more factual. Like, so how did you know that I seemed happy when I said that, or I seemed worried when I said that? Was it something about my tone of voice, or something about the content, the things that I was saying, or something about my body movements? So, like, challenge yourself to look at the details of what I'm saying. So, I'm going to tell you a story. So, we're starting now, and pay attention to those things. And you can even write it down. You can either note in your head as I'm talking, or you can write down the things that you observe about me telling the story. I'm going to tell you about the first time that I went to the grocery store after the coronavirus shutdown had started. So first, I realized I needed to go to the store and get some things, some groceries, and I realized that going to the store is the place where I put myself at most risk of catching the virus. Because in the rest of my life, I had been doing pretty well at keeping myself separate from other people, except those people that I live with. So going out to the store, being exposed to a lot of different people and things that I had to touch, including the doors, including the food, my money and payment and all of that. So I was kind of nervous, like, okay, this is a different experience. I usually don't mind going to the grocery store. In fact, sometimes I even enjoy it, but now I feel like I'm putting myself at risk, but I have to go. And so I had that in the back of my mind as I went. I brought my hand sanitizer to put on before I went into the store, put on gloves. I put some gloves over my my regular driving gloves, put some plastic gloves over. This was before the time that we were asked to use face masks, so I didn't have a face mask on, but I had the gloves on. I put my hand sanitizer under that and went into the store. I had my list. I had it ready to go. It was already out, before I went into the store. It was out and ready to go. I had my credit card in my pocket, so I wouldn't have to mess around with my purse or anything like that. I pulled out my list, got my cart, and then I tried to be as absolutely efficient as I could be. Go, get what I need, get it in the cart, stay away from people as much as possible, and then get the next item one to one to one. And I noticed that when there are people, it's like, oh, I'm not supposed to be more than any closer than 6 feet to this person. And so I realized as I was going that I was even like avoiding eye contact with people. In the past, I might smile, at least a friendly smile, but now I was not even looking at people because I was afraid that if I looked at them, I might get too close or they might get too close. I would try to find an aisle where there's nobody else. And so I'm like sort of quickly going through the store, getting what I need as fast as I can and avoiding eye contact with everybody. It was kind of awkward and uncomfortable. I got what I needed. I checked out. I went home, but it felt kind of wrong. It felt kind of bad. Like I had spent a half hour in the store and I couldn't even tell you who else was in the store because I was trying not to look. And then I thought, well, what if somebody there lives alone and all they needed was just a smile that day, just a smile from a stranger, and I didn't even do that. So I kind of felt bad about that. It's a whole new situation out there for all of us. So that's my brief story to share with you. What did you notice about the content of what I said? Some of the actual statements that I made? What did you notice about my tone of voice as I was speaking about different places in the story? What about facial expressions? Did my facial expressions change in different parts of the story? What were one or two things you noticed about my facial expressions? And then body movements. Anything that I did with my body that you particularly noticed as I was talking? Were there any emotions that you felt were expressed? And how did you know that those emotions were expressed? Was it my tone of voice? Was it my facial expressions? Another thing to note is in my class, I do this kind of observing the other person exercise, but I also have an exercise for noticing your own self-observations when you're in a conversation or listening to somebody else's story. So I kind of separate those out because it helps people to be more intentional about really listening, really paying attention to what's going on with the other person. That's an exercise that you can do on your own. You can do it when you're in conversation with anybody. They don't need to know you're doing it. You can just pay attention, challenge yourself to notice some things about another person when they're talking. You can do it while you're looking at videos online or while you're watching television. Just take 5 or 10 minutes to just notice the details about how somebody is talking, all the different aspects of what you notice. And that in itself can help you to become more present in this moment and more present in your conversations with other people. And so there can be benefits. Again, we get better at these things as we do them more often. And so if you just practice in conversations that you have from time to time, the more you do it, the better you'll get, and the more you'll be developing mindfulness skills. The final thing that I want to share with you is a meditation practice. Now, there are lots of different ways to do meditation, and meditations can be religious if you have a religious focus. They can also be completely secular if the focus of the meditation is completely secular. The ones I'm going to do with you today are completely secular. And so what is different and the same with meditation and mindfulness? So meditation is a form of mindfulness. It's about being fully present in this moment. What's different about it is that it is sustaining one focus over a period of time. So today we will do a meditation that's just very simple, very basic for 5 minutes. That's it. But you will be focusing your attention on one thing for those 5 minutes. And I'll give you some options of what to focus your attention on. And the idea is that you just keep bringing your focus back to that thing that you've chosen to focus on. Your mind will be distracted. There will be times where a thought will come to mind that has nothing to do with what you're focusing on. The idea is, just like when we did the body parts mindfulness, to notice that and then bring it back to the focus. I'm going to give you 3 choices of what to focus on. One is just simply to count to 5 over and over. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you're alone, you might count out loud. If you're not alone, you might choose to count in your head. Either way is perfectly fine. The idea is just to count over and over again. If you're distracted, You just bring your mind back to the counting. The next choice, and you'll only choose one of these, the next choice is to focus on your breathing, to notice the breathing in and the breathing out. Just notice over and over. That's it. Pay attention. Notice how fast, how slow. It doesn't really matter what's happening, just that you're noticing the breathing in and breathing out, and you're bringing your attention back over and over to your breathing. The final choice that I'm going to offer is actually one of my favorites, is to light a candle. And I have one right here. I think that's the one that I will do, but just light a candle. And then you'll put the candle where you can see it right in front of you, and just focus your attention on the flame. And that's it. Focus it. You'll be looking at the candle, paying attention to that. And any time that you have a distracting thought or a distracting emotion, just focus back on the candle. Very simple, yet it can be very difficult as well. Again, with meditation, it's just about practicing the skill, about being present here and now in this moment. And these are tools, things that you can focus on. By doing this kind of practice, it can help you to be more focused in the rest of your life. And so I'm going to invite you to do a meditation with me. Again, we're going to do a 5-minute meditation. Afterwards, if you would like, you can try a longer meditation. But for right now, we'll do a 5-minute meditation. I'm going to ring a bell, and I'll ring a bell at the beginning, and then I'll ring a bell at the end. So get yourself into a comfortable position. You can be sitting in a chair, you can be sitting on a cushion on the floor, however you're comfortable. You can close your eyes or you can leave them open and just sort of look down at whatever you're focusing on. And just pay attention. That's it. What was that like for you? Were you able to bring your focus back either to the counting or your breathing or the candle? Did it feel relaxing or stressful? It doesn't really matter how many times you need to bring your attention back to your focal point. It just matters that you do it. Each time you bring your focus back to what you've chosen as your focal point, you're doing the meditation. Whether it's 10 times in a minute or 1 time in 5 minutes, it doesn't matter. It's just that you do it, that you focus and you bring your attention back. Now I'd like to invite you to check in with yourself. On a scale of 0 to 10, how stressed do you feel right now? Has that number changed since the beginning of this session? Is there any difference in that number? If so, how much? Were there particular exercises that felt helpful to you? Things that you would like to continue with in your life? It's important to notice, how you feel before and after doing mindfulness or meditation. You can also check back in with yourself later in the day and notice if you've maintained that more relaxed state or not. And it doesn't matter which way it is, or you might notice that you haven't. You might notice that you actually do feel a little more centered and relaxed. Just pay attention and then keep doing the practices that feel good for you, either mindfulness practices or meditation, or the mindfulness in conversation. Each one of these practices can help you to train your mind so that it becomes more focused, so that you can increase your ability to regulate your body and your emotions, so that you can regulate your own fear responses and increase your insight. It can be very beneficial to do mindfulness practices and to do meditations. Finally, I encourage you to set a goal for yourself. Thinking back on this past hour and the mindfulness and meditation, are there one of those practices that you would like to continue doing over the course of this week? Maybe you'd set a number of times per week you're going to do it, or certain situations, or maybe increasing the amount of time. If you have tried the meditation and you would like to try for a little bit longer, either doing maybe for a 10-minute meditation or a 15-minute meditation, or maybe encouraging yourself to do on a regular basis every morning for 5 minutes, or 3 times a week for 5 minutes. So think about what goal you want to set there, whether it's for one of the mindfulness practices, meditation, or working in interpersonal relationships. It's always helpful to set a goal and then kind of check back with yourself. So set a goal for a week, and then at the end of the week, check back with how you did. Do you want to continue with that goal? Do you want to add something different, or change the goal in some way? It kind of helps to improve your skills and get better at mindfulness when you set a goal for yourself. Like I said, I teach mindfulness classes, and you're certainly welcome to find out more about that if you'd like. I'm offering them online during the coronavirus shutdown, and once we're able to get out and about again, they'll again be in person. There's also various other places that you can go for mindfulness classes, or just watch videos like this. It's a great skill to have. It can improve your ability to focus in relationships. It can improve your concentration when you're at work or trying to get things done around the house. And it can just increase your sense of well-being. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found something of value here. And I hope that you will continue to increase your engagement in mindfulness and meditation practices, and that it benefits you in your life. I wish you all the best in dealing with life in these days as we face this pandemic, and do our best to make something of our lives in the midst of all of this. Take care.